So I wanted to restart a bit. Yeah, one of the things I'm of course looking forward to the database version of Logseq hitting, and that will mean that I have to migrate my data from the system towards Logseq. And I was wondering, okay, maybe I should do like a little bit cleaning up. I've got like a lot of pages in there, so how do I solve that? And I started by going then towards the discus. So this is like a good discussion. I'll put like a link in the description, and I might as well see if I can drop one in the chat straight away. Um, and there were lots of good tips in here on how to get like a cleaner graph and how bad is it then really. Now, if you look at my setup, currently there's 3,900 pages. I was working with this morning, and it's actually more pages now because as I'm cleaning it up, I'm like linking things together and building topics. So it's been working in reverse, but at least what's there is cleaner. And I haven't done any big cleanups because as I was looking at this, I was thinking like, okay, I could make a video out of this, but then I need to make sure that I capture some of that because then I can show people like, that it actually helps. And I'm basically going to go through a couple of the steps that I had. I'm going to make a video about this because I've already like hashed out like an outline for that where I just want to go over the structure, and I'm going to basically take the same things that I've been hashing out. First thing to do, for me at least, is like I go to all pages, which shows you all your pages. There's a lot in there, and I'm going to start with like getting rid of the orphan pages. So there's a whole bunch, but this one just says like, okay, these things go nowhere. And I do see a couple of things that I'm confused about. Like going like, hey, why isn't that there? So let's have a look, because this one, like the problem with no code solutions, well, it's an empty page, so it doesn't go anywhere. So that's not a big problem. Again, going back to all pages, and I'm going to go like remove orphan pages. Look at it again. Comic seems like a subset. Marvel, I know because I was going through that. That shouldn't be there. The books template is probably empty, I'm guessing. No, it's not empty. Okay, so. Yeah, some old books that I went through. I'm just going to risk it. But if you're doing this for yourself, then you might want to take a little bit more time before you do like the full cleanup. I'm just going to go accept that I might lose a few things. One of the big things that changed for me as I was using Logseq was that I was accepting that sometimes you just lose files, and we're going to see more of that when we get into the query part. And I think the other thing that was super interesting, I was working on that today, is using the graph view. I'm also going to post a link here, and I'm going to post a link in the video I'm going to make about it to vote on this, because while the graph view actually works for this, not being able to shift click and move pages to the side so that you can observe and clean them makes this, I wouldn't say it's just unusable with large graphs like these, because my graph has like a lot of elements in it and I can find some problems. But if I want to clean stuff up, I have to leave the graph and then have to go back to the graph, load in the graph, takes load, and the momentum really drops. One of the things I do like from this, if you have like the forces, you got like these link distance thing, and so you can like say, hey, I would like to move things outside a bit and change the strength. But even better, there's a setup. Give me a second while my graph tries to figure out what to do. But this one, the graph analysis tool, wait for it to load. Oh, it's not loading. Did I make it too big? Did I break it? So that's a demo effect right there. I'm gonna go try and reload Logseq, see if it works then. Because I was messing with this morning, and one of the things I like about the analysis tool is that you can set like the gravity, like how much things get pulled together, and that means that things that are like a cluster of information really get pulled together, which I like. So if it doesn't work now, I'm gonna skip that part because I'm not gonna fix that on stream straight away. And maybe it's just there's too much data in it, or I changed some things that cleaned it up. But this is the slider that I'm talking about, the one here on the right that shows like the nodes gravity. By increasing the gravity, then nodes with like a lot, pages with like a lot of other pages, they'll get pulled together, and that means that I can see the small constellations on the outside. It doesn't show it here, so we're just going to use the regular graph for now. It's a bit slow because even though I have a pretty okay computer, the graph is always taking a lot, and in the background it's also streaming, encoding, and multiple streams, so that probably hits it harder. Let me go to the graph view and see what I mean with like the view that I was looking for. This is like also one of the main reasons why not being able to just shift click and open things in the background and keep that graph in view is stopping me from using this a lot, because every time I go out and I go in. But it does help me to find like small places that are bad. And I'm going to go switch the queries in a bit because those are faster. And maybe after I cleaned up that, then it might be a better idea to go through the graph. But this stays slow no matter what, because the core of my nodes will still be in the thousands. And every time you open the graph, it needs to like load all those nodes and then start linking them. And I do enjoy myself some good links, so it becomes really, really big. But as you can see, when you have like a graph like this, and if I wait a bit until it settles, it is this outer rim that I like when cleaning, because you'll see nodes there that have like 1 or 2 links that are like small constellations on their own, and usually those need some cleanup. They are either not linked together, they don't have enough tags, and my goal of showing this was to go into like at least one, if the graph handles it. I think the recording is like killing it. Maybe I'll finally have an excuse to say like, hey, if I want to do the streaming with graphs more often, I'll need a bigger PC. But so one of the things that I had when I was doing this earlier, for example, was a couple of book authors that weren't marked as book authors and weren't linked to things like, hey, this is an author. So I very often have like people that I link to. So for example, I'm making a journal and I want to talk about like Andy Weir as an author, and then their page gets created for Andy, but there's no data inside that page yet. Yeah, this is unbearable. We'll skip the graph for now. I think it's the recording because it was working fine earlier, but right now my computer is doing this recording and trying to show the graph. But to get back like to the core of it, when you're using graphs, you shouldn't focus too much on the individual pages, but more on like, hey, how do things cluster together? And that's why I like using the graph when I want to swim through my data. I usually zoom in and look at like individual nodes. And I'll definitely do a recording of that when I make the video, because in that case, I can limit the recording. Right now, when I'm doing a live stream like this, I'm doing like a streaming recording, which is a different encoding for the recording for video editing, which has more depth. And then there's like different layers that get recorded as well. So it records just the screen, just me, so that my editor can zoom in and out and use that later. So I think that's stopping the graph from showing up, because it's a very CPU intensive thing, and there's already a lot of CPU intensive things running in the background. But when you look at the graph, look on the outside and find those small constellations and zoom into that one, and you'll probably figure out like, hey, this page hasn't been cleaned up, I need to do it, but there's a lot of them. So when it comes to a lot of them, I was making like some notes on decluttering. So there was the link that I just posted in chat. I'm looking at like, hey, what can I do to fix it there? You see things like, find the orphan page, which I just did. And I think this one should really get some votes, because being able to open graph pages on the side makes the graph way more useful, because you can swim through the graph and actually like clean up things as you go. But another thing that was absolutely amazing on that page were the cleanup queries. So there's a whole bunch of queries here. And you can get those queries straight from the page that I put in the chat. So I'm hoping it links to it. I don't see it on my personal chat link, but it will probably work. And these queries allow you to find things like, in this case, tasks without tag. Now, this is very personal. If you make tasks, I prefer to tag most of them, but of course it doesn't always happen. So what you get is like all these tasks that are not sorted to anything, and that will never be looked at least in my case. So that helps to clean it up. But if you're just using tasks to mark anything, then you might want to skip this one. The other one that's going on here is the broken reference, and I love this one because this happens like partially because of syncing issues, but mostly because you either remove the page that they're referencing, and that means that the reference gets broken, and these things are like all broken set. It's not as bad as I would have expected over all the time, but you can see like the results. So for example, I have here this one, add notes about fidget spinners, and then this was pointing somewhere, but that doesn't exist anymore. So I'm just gonna go remove the whole thing, except that I lose it because I don't know how it fits into the bigger picture. And then I can go back. For some reason that doesn't work anymore. Maybe I removed the block. I just removed the block that was in between. So when I try to go back in history, Logseq is confused because it can't open that block anymore. So that's why here we lose our track. So let's take another one. I thought the bottom one here. This one's weird, right? So you don't see the reference in it. Let's have a look and see what's happening there. So I have here must-have plugins, and somewhere here, there's an embed. This one shows, but this one is blank. You can, oh, sorry. I need to show Logseq, else you can't see what's happening. Let's go back a bit, show you what I'm doing here. I'm not fully awake. I might need like an extra coffee. I probably need to cut in this stream a bit to show what I'm doing here. So let's go back, I think, to before the queries that I had. So when I look up the queries that I have here, you see like tasks without tag that I talked about, and that just shows you all the tasks that don't have a tag. Like this one, if you're the type of person that, categorizes your tasks. I, for example, have like the hashtag W, which means a widget means this is prepped and ready to go, and I just need to do this work. And as I'm saying this, I'm remembering myself that I haven't done that proper. So I should be re-picking that one up. And then I was looking at the broken references, and then one of the things that you have is that if you remove this reference, you might not know like what it's referring to, and it just happens. And it's usually because you removed or changed the page that it's referring to. This is 2 or 3 years of using Logseq with 26 results, so I don't think it's that bad considering the amount of notes that I make. But it might feel bad if you have to look at it at a list. And the thing that I was pointing at is these are these embeds. So you don't see like this bright yellow line here, but you do see this small block, and that means that's a block embed that's broken. So for example, the Vicky board, I'm going to open that one. I'm going to go scroll down a bit and then find these 2 embeds that no longer will work. And if I click in it, it does show it, but it says like, I don't know where this is. I could do an attempt, so I'm going to go see if I can search for it. And if it finds something, it says that there's a page, but that's just creating a new page for this. So this is lost to time. I just have to accept. Not sure what I did there, but I probably cleaned it up at a later interview, and then this old reference is still there. So now when I remove that, I should be able to go back, and then I think because the screen was missing, a quick recap, I tried going back and it didn't work, and that was because I first opened the block with the embed and then removed said block. So I'll re-simulate that, taking this one. As you see, there's an embed here. I don't know what happened here, and then I decided like, okay, I'll just go to the day and try and find that line and remove the whole block. Delete selected block, and then back doesn't work anymore because the block's gone. It doesn't know what happened there, so then you have to go to the declutter set. So it's better when you're doing these things to open the whole page, to clean up the page, and then do back instead of like opening the block and trying from there. And these, I just have to go through these to clean them up a bit. So I like this part. This is the broken references. I'll continue with that later. And then you have the empty files, and this is also not half bad, but this is then files where I'm going like, hey, there's no information in there. I kind of ironic that the simplicity node has no notes in it. This usually happens because, as you can see here, like I'm writing stuff in my journal and I'm linking to a page, but I never get to like optimizing that page. So then there's two options that I have to do. Do I want to keep this page? Do I want to get rid of it? In this case, I want to get rid of it. So I'm just gonna break that. And now I have like this half simplicity thing somewhere that I actually need to fix, but that's my bad. Let's first see if I can remove this page. No longer, I think, because it got killed. There's a lot of unlinked ones, which are expected. And it's not showing the one that I just cleaned, probably because I need to resync. But now the page should be gone. So let's see if I go back to declutter, if it's still there. No, it's gone. And then I can simplicity, see if my mistake here, this is my mistake. So I'm gonna go find it and fix it, because else you get this really weird setup. Now, other tools that I know of, they fix that by not immediately throwing it away when you change the line. In this case, the best thing you can do is like shift click on the line so that it's on the sideboard and then clean it up from there. So let's do one proper. I have no idea who that is, but let's take this change log, for example. I'm moving that to the side. It says like, hey, I'm referencing to the change log, which is this setup. And that has then collected notes for that change log. And that's not a big problem. So I'm just going to go add tags to that. I say like, okay, as a change log reference. So I would call this a reference. You know, these ones are allowed to stay. And then you see that it gets removed here. I'm actually amazed that I don't see this for every changelog, because all the changelogs have this block that I made, so they should all give me empty pages. But I believe that I was reading in the file that this doesn't mean exactly that. Oh, it had to be like some data in it. So if it's totally empty, it doesn't show up because it's an empty reference. And if as soon as you put like an empty line in there, then it does show up in this list, because then there's something wrong. So you had the file open, you wanted to do something with it, but you didn't. And I think the main reason to do this is because of these things. Like these Logseq change logs are there as a reference for me, but they don't need to have any page information in it, because it's mostly to link back to the block where I made it. So that if I want to check out all the notes I have on a specific change log, it should come back here. Let's have a look, see what happens. Like I do a change log. And as you can see, here are all the other references. Now I take 6. As you can see, click here to edit. So this file doesn't exist. It doesn't have to be cleaned up. The only reason Logseq knows about it is because there's a block that points it, compared to this one, the one that we have on the side here. I'm going to move it back, open this page. It should open this page. Oh, not sure what's happening there. Let's just open it this way then. And this one has data in it. So now I'm going to go change it. I'm going to go make it empty. I'm going to say like, no, I don't need this page, just delete it. Now, you might think like, hey, you're deleting the page. Aren't you removing this information? And it shouldn't, but we're going to check, because, you know, I want to see what happens. So I just did 10.0.0. And then you still see that reference here. So it's still pointing towards the file. But now the file itself will give that, it should give that empty set, maybe because I opened it. Let me try and fully delete it again. So you're trying to clean up files that are empty so they don't add any value, but are just a reference in this case. If I would have like a list of all the actual empty files, then I would get a lot, because I have a lot of moments where I'm journaling and I just, oh, this might be a good idea. I think that's a totally different type of cleanup that you might need to do. And that one has a lot to do with grouping. Because if you're cleaning up stuff, then grouping things together is one of the things that you mostly do. Now, if you need a good plugin for that, I absolutely highly recommend getting the Logseq Merge Pages plugin, because it allows me to merge pages that are very alike, but keep the alias, so keep like the original ideas going. It's a bit clunky if you've never used it before, but basically what you do is you say like, hey, this is the page that I want to keep, set that page, then you add all the pages you want to merge to it and hit a merge button, and then it will create a list of aliases on that page. For at least in my experience, very often that merge doesn't follow through very well. So the alias, for example, has like an enter in it. So you need to do a little bit of cleanup to make it clean. But after that, it's fine. And that really gets those duplicates away, fixes the problems that I've been hitting, and is the way where I start combining things. A good example of pages where that often happens is if I have a page with just somebody's first name because I've been working with them, and like a last name where there's like their full name, because at some point you want their full name in there to differentiate between different people with the same name. And that's the huge change there, where you can like, hey, I want to combine those because I want to refer to them in my meeting notes to their first name, but I also want to have their full name, except for the people that have like the same name as other people I work with. So, for example, I work a lot with Portuguese people, and João, I'm really sorry for the Portuguese people. I don't speak the language. Joao. We have like 3 or 4 of those because it's a very popular name there. So I'm not knocking on it. There's a lot of popular Dutch names as well. Mine is an example. Bas happens a lot. So referring to Bas, like which Bas are you talking about? And are you talking about Bas the manager, or are you talking about Bas the coworker, or are you talking about Bas the YouTube content creator? And some of these are maybe the same people. So then aliases help, because then you can say like, okay, the person I work with, I use the first name because I have to use that very often, and the other people get like the full name treatment, and I have the full name for when I have to be explicit. For example, when I'm making meeting notes and I want to export those meeting notes to them, then I need that full name in there, because those people might not know who I'm referring to if I'm using just their first name, which is a huge problem I see with a lot of companies, where they just send you a first name and assume you know who it is. Like, really, we're in a company of 10,000 people and you send me your first name and just expect me to know which one of the 5 people with that first name I need to use? Be more explicit, people, really. Anyhow, so I'm going to go and clean this up a bit, because that was one of the reasons why I set up the stream. I mostly wanted to show like what I'm doing and record a bit of it. So the log one, for example, is another great example. This one I use a lot because I use it for a lot of log tracking. What does that mean? That means that if it's a combination of 2 things, where I write something down. So, for example, I have a log here on Satisfactory. Let's go there. And so when I play Satisfactory and I know like, hey, I'm not going to be playing for a while, or I should do it every time, but I stop playing, but I have this log entry, and that means that I can go to Satisfactory and I can check that log entry and go like, oh, this is what I was doing last time I was playing, so I can pick it back up. And I use that log sometimes to generate queries. And that query is then like, hey, I want the current page with the hashtag log, so I have like a logbook of all the things that I did. I very often use that for frequent meetings. You might notice, like in the previous page, autism was mentioned there. So I have a coach and we talk, and then I log every time that we're sitting together in my journal and make like a link towards the coaching session and add a hashtag log to get like a full set of it. And now I have this page and it's like out there and going like, okay, what is it doing? And then what I normally do in here is, first of all, tags, because this is a collection. And I'm going to put some tags. So I used to entries for a specific topic. And now I have like this setup. A lot of this stuff is medical. Because there I found that I really need to log everything, because you constantly get questions. I'm not sure if other people have that, but I have that a lot. Like I get to a doctor and they go like, I'm busy. I don't want to spend time going to a doctor. So I usually go like, okay, I'll have a look at it. And then the problem that I had when I was going to doctors was like, hey, how long have you been having this? And then I had to say, like, well, I don't know, 2 weeks. Oh, well, we'll look for another month. These days they ask like, how long have you been having this? And I just open Logseq and go like, yeah, I've been having this for 3 months and it's been coming back at regular intervals because I see log entries every 2 weeks. And it's been annoying and I've been waiting and waiting and waiting. And now I'm at your place and I want to, actually do some investigation. Partially they hate it because they can't send me away with we'll wait for another 2 weeks, but I love it because I only have to do one set and I can really demand saying like, okay, just I already did the waiting part. It doesn't recover in its own. Let somebody who's like knowledgeable about this topic have a look at it. So log your medical stuff. Use Logseq for that. It's better for your health. Let's see, more empty files. Prompts. Prompts is, in my case, mostly for chat prompts. So any ideas that I have on prompts. So again, this is definitely a collection. Chat prompts for AI. I'm not sure how much people are messing with AI, but like having a collection of prompts, and for me, that's like I do prompts, and then I have like prompts under it, and turn into Markdown article. This is one that I currently have, where I use this prompt to take something like a forum post and then let ChatGPT read it, turn it into an article, and then I upload that to my website so I can read it later with Getpocket. It's a bit of an AI-driven way of how things like Readwise do it. But Readwise isn't as intelligent as ChatGPT when it comes to reading an article and then turning it into something that is actually useful. It's not as good as reading like the full forum post. And I very specifically say that it needs to say like, hey, this is ChatGPT generated, because I don't want people to go to my website and find my AI subsection, which is hidden, and then think I've written those articles. I didn't. I just let it like reprocess information so I can listen to it while I'm walking or read it at leisure on my Books device. But then this thing just needs like a little bit of text in there because this is supposed to be there. Then we can move that one away. This one's a bit weird. This one's not supposed to be here. It says notes here. This is absolutely not needed. Maybe it was a video idea that I had at some point and just didn't pan out. And it has these orphan pages, but I don't get any results in that one. Let's see what it tries to do. That feels a bit weird. I'm not sure what this query is trying to reach. I see that it's looking for extreme and it starts with HLS, but I'm not sure why I would have that. This is really advanced stuff. Like, and I could use an explainer here, but it's outside of that scope. Anyhow, this is like a repeat thing, right? Now, if I have to go through this, what I need to do is just clean up all these things, and in the meantime, I'm just rambling a bit about like what's in my system. I do remember this article. It's nice when you go cleaning up here because you get like reminded about a lot of things, even though that link isn't there anymore. I remember I was listening to a podcast about it. And I think a lot of these also start to exist. And that's one of the things I really hate when I look at my graph. I'm going to go try and reopen the graph, see if we get somewhere in the meantime. Because when I look at my graph, I see that I had Readwise set up and it generates a lot of mess in my system, basically. And that's the problem that I have with automated system in your personal knowledge management. You can't win from automated systems. So it will quickly take over your graph if you let it. And I think this blurb here on the left, if I zoom into that one, you see that it's highlights. It's all highlights. And these highlights are all part of Readwise. But Readwise even makes one of these highlight pages if I don't know, read a page for too long or something. So I have this whole cluster here. But chances are that it doesn't contain the information that I want to have it. Let's just take one at random. Okay, here, I made some highlights, but there's like a whole bunch of information here, like the link to the video, one note that I made. This could have just been a block in my journal. This could just be an entry in my journal that says like, hey, I was watching this video. And I don't like it making pages for stuff that doesn't really deserve its own page. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this, if I'm going to clean it out or remove it. I might need to, I don't know, find a way to scrub all these highlight pages. And I'm half considering just saying like, okay, just RM, RF, all these things. Let's see how bad it really is. I'm going to go prompt a bit. I prepped this thing to tell people like always make backups, people. So if you look in backups, there's like an old backup here for a personal 2. And I have like an automated backup running, so I don't worry about it too much. But if you start this and you start cleaning up your system, it never hurts to make an extra backup. Let's see, personal 2. Is it 8th already? Yes, it is. 02 personal 2 gsit. I'm going to make an extra backup if I'm doing any major changes. Always make a backup up front, because then the worst thing that can happen is that you have to return to the backup. And I'll just move that to the background. The backup will happen. In the meantime, we'll have a look at the file. And then if I go to pages, and then I can see a lot of stuff, but I'm going to highlight these, nearly all of them. You see here like tweets. This is generating a lot of cruft. I'm wondering now, like word count, line. So there's 127 pages in my set that are all these sets of information, and I have like tweets. Let's say tweets from. It's a lot of people that I know, so that part, at least it's like people that I care about. But does this really add to my life? So let's go back to Logseq. Say like tweets. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think this adds a lot of value. This is one of the reasons why I stopped auto-syncing readwise towards my system, because it just fills up the system. And at some point, I'm like, can I throw this away? Can't I throw this away? I could remove like all these highlights files, but I'm not sure if that would be the best way, or if that would break something essential. I don't think it would break anything essential. So let's just bite the bullet and see what happens. Now, the best thing, if you're going to do something like this and you're going to go make changes en masse in your markdown files, next to the backup that I just made, we're also going to close Logseq. Because else it's going to be fighting over like, what happened. Let's see, we go here. I'm going to go to pages. I just made a backup, so I can remove these files without repercussions, basically. I'm going to go say star. Then I get grep md, yeah. And then the other thing that I'm wondering a bit is the file size. Are there any files in there that are actually pretty big? And there aren't a lot. Okay, there we get like the real gist of it. I'm just gonna see what happens if I'm like, I got the building a second brain. So the building a second brain one, for example, there I did like a lot of note taking. And here I see like a whole bunch of stuff that gets sent over. So Would that be useful? Maybe, maybe not. That makes it tricky. I want to clean it out, but I'm also afraid I'm going to miss out on things. So let's take this and then say like, okay, maybe I can like remove all the small ones, like you see here, the test one. That one's easy because that doesn't have anything in it that's of significance, and you'll have like, let's see, I got this tweets from Tia's. Posted a guide, doesn't add a lot. So I could try and sort this on file size and use that as a indicator. Let's see, star. Does this work? No, probably because I need slashes there. Or it's highlights. It's highlights. Does this work? Yes. Okay. And then go like size and say like -1K. It's been a while since I've been. This is larger than 1K, I think. XRs. Let's also see what we get. Oh, there's a lot of spaces in there that stops me from using. That's curious. This is just work. And this is one of the things I dislike about it, because I want to clean this up, but I can't. I can't just willy-nilly everything, because there's books where I did like a lot of highlights. On the other hand, this is all synced. And because it's synced, that means that all these highlights are in my books. I think 9 out of 10 times it comes out of my book setup. I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm just going to go accept that I lose some data. Not everybody wants to do this, right? This is rough stuff. But for me, my setup, I really like to just, accept that I lose some data and forget some stuff. And we'll find it again if it's important. I'm going to restart Logseq, see if that helps. It needs to clean up, and the sync is probably going to go finding a lot of stuff. This is one of the reasons I like the Markdown backend, because this would be near impossible on the database backend right now, at least. There I would need a plugin. It's also a bit why I was kind of disappointed that the database backend just uses node entries and not like a full database. So I can't do things like, select all pages that have no data or all pages with highlights and remove those. So yeah, doing some of this cleanup is better. And it's syncing stuff back, I think, because I see things coming back. I'm not sure if it's syncing all of them. Oh man, getting rid of these is going to be tricky. I have to get rid of these before I'm moving this to the database set, because this is not what I was focused on. Like, let's see if I did bring the pages down a bit. 100. It's a lot of work for a couple of pages. Final thing, and then I'm going to close this stream. yeah. Sometimes it's just biting the bullet, but I have a feeling that like this looks cleaner now because all the highlights are away. So that part was at least successful. And there was another thing that I thought that was weird. You see these colored elements in here. I was going like, what's that? And then as I was zooming into it, it seems to be some type of journaling structure that I had. So what I did is I changed the journaling structure to include slashes, and that means that they become like these sub pages. And some people really like that, right? Because then you can go like, okay, I would like to see everything from a specific date, but this setup doesn't work that well because the day is in front of it, so that splits it up. And personally, then having like a week or a month setup would have been better. And now it just clutters up my view a bit because it sees this first day 2023 as a page. Well, actually, it's just a journal entry that gets generated from the journal pages that are under it. I'm gonna have to dig into this one because I think it's part of like the formatting that I used. So if I go to config, and then we have to scroll down a bit. This part's hard to read, so I'll copy paste it once I get to it. There should be a, I'm just gonna see if I can find it. Yeah, journal page title format that I used. And so the original idea here is to use this with the slashes to get like a nice, easy to browse through structure. That was the original idea. And then I ruined it by putting the day in front of it. So what I should do is probably change that and have the day of the week at the end, because then you get like pages per set. Move it out or accept that this might not be the best way to do it, and just use the pages individually because they fill up the graph and they just make it a whole mess. And now I'm wondering, like, journal page file format, what's the default? Because I've been using Logseq for so long that I probably forgot what the default is. I'm gonna go do a quick look online to see if I can get that. And let me show that so that people can join in on it. So I'm gonna go this one, show my browser. So there's at least people asking about it. And this seems to be like an old task that talks about like, hey, which format should we use? Oh, I'm so glad I made backups, because if I want to change this, then I don't really care about this. I just want to know what the default is. New page properties, lots of people talking about it. Complete Logseq templates guide. It should be per set, so maybe let me go towards my text setup and then go to Logseq. This one should have it in there, like the config, and grab. And let's just take this one. So this is the format in my personal notes, but let's, I don't know, take one from the D&D. Do the same thing. Yeah, so there I used the year, month, day to group it. So I think I changed it there as well. But there at least I didn't put the day in front of it, making it like absolutely horrible. I think personal is like a really old version of mine, so that might be how it used to be. There we didn't even have it, so that's good. Let's take the demo one, because I don't change that one a lot. One more. Yeah, so I think this is the more of the default format, so that it gives me like a day of the week, but short, and then the day, the month, and the year. Let's see what happens if I try and change that back to its original setting. And I think I got mentioned somewhere that if you're referring to the journal, is this changed now? No, it's not changed. Settings, maybe I didn't save it. Or maybe I need to re-index it, I think. Yeah, I need to re-index. So let's go here, go to the journal and say like, okay, let's do a full re-index, see what happens. That if you have like any references to specific date, that doesn't get updated now. So we'll figure that out, because I'm going to go open the graph and see if those clusters are still there. If those clusters are still there, then nothing changed. If the clusters aren't there, then this solves the problem a bit. And I think most of the issues that I got here are because I did a date time setup with slashes in it, and the slashes then kind of break the structure up. And the idea was that I would have pages per month or per week. And this is where building systems and making things more complex actually stops you from doing things. You shouldn't try and automate this. If you want to have like a weekly journal, make a weekly journal. So schedule some time, make that page, and then actually put some stuff in there. If you're not putting any stuff in there, then it's not going to help. Get this update from the dashboard. This is still from the renaming thing. There's also something that if I'm doing the migration towards the database set, I'm definitely going to have to, I really should have like an auto switch. So I'm now re-indexing with the changed setup. And then it starts complaining about these %20 places. These %20 places are spaces that are changed. Logseq did like a renaming at some point, but I still have some of these old ones in. So I really need to go through my graph and get rid of those before I migrate. Because all the stuff that I clean up now while it's still on Markdown will be clean when we get into the database. And there's going to be this gap, right? Because eventually we're going to get that two-way Markdown sync. But I don't know if that two-way Markdown sync will allow me to clean it up the way I'm doing right now by changing local files. And B, there's going to be a time where it's either database or Markdown. So, clean up before it goes in there means it's going to be a lot easier to do because I don't need any plugins to do so, and I can still use all my file manipulation tools. So graph view after doing the whole thing. You see that the journal title is changed. This doesn't change your files because the files are just all date-based. And now all these weird things are gone. So that would be the easiest fix that I have. Now the graph becomes like a little bit more interesting to look at. Because you see clusters of information, and that doesn't help that much, but you also see like sets here. This is, that's definitely, I start recognizing that one. It's the SAFe training. SAFe is an agile thing that I hate with a passion. Anybody that tells you that SAFe is a good solution, your core stuff isn't good. I did the training only so that I could rant on it better. Or maybe felt like maybe I was missing. Actually, SAFe has like a lot of good elements in it. But then you give it to management and they ignore all the good elements and just take the bad elements. So they want more planning and control, and they don't care about things like writing an avatar, figuring out who your end user is, or actually, I don't know, writing stuff for people to enjoy. So that was like my SAFe setup, and you can see that hooks up to a lot. And then here you have all these small islands of information. So things that I might need to clean up, like the machine learning, I was cleaning that one up earlier because I want to move that all under topic. You see some of the change logs, and that has a lot of individual because I have links to the people that made that contribution possible, and that helps me in an actual use case, because if I ever talk to these people and I want to know like, hey, what did they do? I can find their page and see, oh, they made changes in that change log and that change log, and this is what they contributed. And then I can actually know what I'm talking about when they talk about what they're passionate about. Game engine stuff. And I think, this looks very much like what I used to write when I was still using Obsidian, because it has like a double title in it and a name on it. Let's clean this one up. So tags, game engine, and then the rest doesn't have to really be filled, but then like I can go to game engine and then it shows like multiple game engines that are there. But if you have tags, then you don't strictly need to do it. So let's say this one, game engine, overpriced. And this is one of the reasons why as I was cleaning it up, I also got like more files, because as I'm cleaning it up, I'm also going through my notes and like, this can be cleaned and patched and done. So now we have like this nice game engine page that there's no information in it, and then things that are tagged with it. One of the reasons why I'm so fanatically about tagging is because the database version uses tags to decide what type of page something is. So by tagging it now, I'm basically staying ahead of the game. Not all of these is going to be useful. Game engine, probably not. But author, for example, and I love taking Andy for this is like what he did. And this is like the old structure. So this is type book, and I know that that's not going to work. I'm going to have to start changing this. Yeah, so he's an author, but he's also a person. Now, probably all authors are persons right now. We don't know, things might change. But setting this up means that like now I can go to author and see like different authors here. And fix it. And this needs to be a lot longer because it's mostly science fiction writers that I have. But now I can start building a structure. As I'm reading the book, I'm starting to add authors, and I'm going to be more strict about that once we hit that database set, because it's going to force me into a certain structure, which I like. I want that structure because I'm chaotic and I want to fix this. So I used to do everything with type, and now I do everything with tags, because now I know that this in the future thing will become like a book, and there's like a state in here, but I'm going to be making that into a drop down as soon as the database version hits. That's weird. Oh, there's two tags. So there's science fiction and book. In that case, I need to do this, else I get a mix up. And then I could go to book. And it's just like, hey, I see type book, because that's what it originally was based on, and it's going to be tagged book. I need to rewrite this. But then again, I don't really keep track of my books in Logseq. I keep track of my books in Goodreads. Not everything needs to be in one place. And I like the fact that when I'm using Goodreads, other people can see my recommendations. Florida waking up. Hey, Kevin, how you doing? So yeah, this is like I went through this. I wouldn't say pretty quickly. The way that I'm gonna work through this now, because there's a lot to clean up, and I didn't want to really be on stream and just cleaning every individual page. Is I'm gonna make a task to say like every week take like half an hour to scrub a little bit until I'm there, and probably a few bigger chunks because of the database. Alpha that's going to hit at some point, where I'm going to at least do some testing. In that case, I probably won't be working with my data in the alpha, because it's going to break, the structure is going to change, I'm going to have to re-input port. But I want to be able to test the import and see what happens if I load in a large Logseq node set database. And then figure out, if anything breaks, because that's my main goal. If I get the alpha, then the people that are trying the alpha are going to try and break it hard, because that's the goal. Once we've broken it enough and those things are fixed, then I'm expecting it to go to open beta quickly, where people will actually start putting data in it and start using it day to day. And I hope that once we hit that point, I will be using it day to day, because, I can accept that I get some data loss. I don't mind things breaking. That's part of being on the bleeding edge, right? You have to bleed a little. So that's fine. I still recommend that anybody that doesn't like that bleeding edge setup and can't accept that they might lose data or might have to go back to a backup, stick with the current, I wouldn't say stable version because it's still in beta, but at least with the current version of Logseq, where you can still access your markdown files, and wait it out. Wait until people say, like, okay, this is stable, you can start using this, or maybe limit the testing. So run the database, import your data, and say like, okay, I'm going to play with this for 2 days and accept that if it doesn't work out, then, I lost 2 days, or you keep your notes in two places. So copy and paste it for 2 days while you're figuring out if this is stable enough. Definitely make like a separate graph. And this cleanup work that I'm doing beforehand hopefully helps with my migration, though I won't be able to clean it up that much, at least not enough. It's not going to be pristine when I'm importing it. And I actually kind of hope for that, because nobody's graph is going to be pristine. So I hope to find like a lot of issues when I try to migrate my messy 2 years, 3 years of notes written. I had an Obsidian stint set up and then chuck it to the import code and hope it chokes, because that's what testing is, right? You order 1 beer, you order 2 beers, you order half a beer, you order -5 beers, and then see if it breaks. Anybody that still hanging around, thanks for hanging with me and watching me ramble on while I'm trying to clean up my Logseq code and forgetting to switch to the right screens because I don't stream that often enough that it's in my system. Mad points for Ed Nico for pointing out that my mic was off. I'm going to go switch that feature off right now because I keep forgetting. And then hope to see you in the next one. Stay awesome.